Welcome to Sacred Magic. Violet is on a quest to bring sacredness back into our everyday experiences. Anyone can have an extraordinary life when they are able to tap into their sacred magic within. Violet and her guests will be sharing their divine passions, inspirations, and stories of connecting with their sacred magic. We are so happy you have joined us today. Let's get started with your host, the magical creator of Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Violet Rayne.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sacred Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Vialet Rayne, and today I'm excited to talk to Fred Kluth. He is a psycho-spiritual counselor, intuitive medium, teacher, and artist. He's dedicated to the sacredness of all life. He's the director of the Helix Training Program, a transformative training experience that integrates the psychological awareness, spiritual practice, and holistic healing modalities. He works with people in need of moving out of their fear, creating a life of joyful abundance by using holistic tools such as shamanism, somatic practices, inner child work, and creative expression. So, welcome, Fred, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
So excited to have you. Now, for those listening, we were talking before, and so we're going to jump right back in. So, talk to us a little bit because I believe lots of people are awakening or reawakening or stepping into some of this energy that's coming in. Share with us your journey of how you started doing this, because I know you started in corporate like many of us and stepped out of that. So, what got you to lead down this path?
Well, it's a pretty complex journey, honestly. I had some traumatic experiences when I was a young man, and I was also having like a psychic awakening. And this was in the 1980s, and there wasn't the hold that we have now for that kind of experience, right? Psychology was even frowned upon. And certainly, if you're having a spiritual awakening in the 1980s, nobody knew anything about that, right? At least in New Jersey, where I'm from. And I kind of stumbled through my path and tried to find what I could, but I didn't really have a hold for it. I didn't have any good teachers. And then when I met my wife, she had a similar experience, and somebody came to her and said, "You should try out this Helix Training Program," which was a 4-year psychological and spiritual program. And it was great. It taught us about parts of self and um, holistic healing and energy work and shamanism. And so it was a combination of Western talk therapy and Eastern spiritualism. So we like to say it's like a bit of couch therapy in Hogwarts. And through that, we both were trained how to be psycho-spiritual counselors. When I graduated, we also had babies, and there was a financial crisis. So I said, I can't really follow this right now. I have to go back into corporate. And I worked as a program manager in advertising for many years. Um, right about the time that we were trying things on the side, but my job really wasn't able to. Like, I couldn't say, "Oh, okay, I'll meet you at 6 o'clock," because I was in advertising in New York City and I didn't know when I was going to get home. So it was in the back burner. My wife was still practicing. We had babies. Life went into this thing. But right before the pandemic, a friend of mine came and said, "You know, our friend Ashley is teaching about mediumship. You should take classes with her." And I didn't even really know what mediumship was. And I started learning from her and Tony Stockwell. And this whole world opened to me. And it was very healing for me, because then I realized, like, oh, yes, I can speak to spirits. I've been doing it all my life. And I really need to do this and really help people with this. And it was like the missing piece in my healing journey as well, because I was like, oh, this is what's been going on for me in addition to all these other things.
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of people, whether they realize it or not, when they go through this awakening, they kind of push it away. I didn't see that. Hey, did
Mhm.
you see that? Nobody's seen it. It's just kind of a weird thing with me. Hey, did you notice that? Hey, did you get that gut feeling? We all kind of push it to the side because we don't understand it. And we were talking earlier in England, this is pretty normal and common over there in doing this type of work. And so here we're still kind of moving in. I think we're further along than the 1980s,
Yes.
but there's still a little bit of that element of psychics, mediums, what are they doing, all of that. And so,
Mhm.
for those listening that may be experiencing some of these things, it's about looking for somebody that can be a mentor or a guide or a teacher or teaches classes. So, talk to me. I've never heard of the Helix Training Program, and
Oh,
you're the director of the Helix Training Program. And in Colorado, we have lots of spiritual things going on, but I haven't heard of that. So share a little bit more about that.
so myself, my wife, and my friend Jana, we're all the directors of this program. And this started in the 1980s, and it started out of a reaction to the AIDS crisis. So a number of women, 5 women, got together and they started to do this program where they were supporting people that were dying of AIDS in New York City. And they opened up a clinic, and from that they were like, well, a lot of people need to know this. So they were intuitives, they were social workers, they were energy workers, they were all this kind of variety of skills, shamans. And they started this program, and a lot of it was, kind of like an open program. People could come in for different kinds of spiritual and psychological support. From that they decided that, like, let's train people. So for for my class, I was the 8th class, and we it was a 4-year program, and it's a combination of learning, very it's an experiential program. So rather than just get lectures and, like, this is what, Jung talked about, it was also, okay, get in there and do it. So we had an active program where the teachers would demonstrate the either the energy work or the shamanic practices or the psychological practices, and then we worked with our classmates as well. So we would meet every Tuesday, and 1 weekend a month, and we had group therapy. So it was highly intense. And after our program, they went on hiatus a little bit, and then my wife and I were doing channeling classes with one of our teachers, Julie Winter, over the summer. And we were like, hey, what's going on with Helix? Have you ever thought about relaunching it? And through that conversation, through that kind of divine download that we got, she was like, it's all yours. So we got we got a church and two 501(c)(3)s, and we're in the process of relaunching it. We have a good amount of capital, and we are going to be rolling it out in the next year or so.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because I never heard of the program. So pretty cool to be able to offer some of that, because I think it's really needed in the world. We don't have enough of that.
And the beautiful thing is it's a bridge, because some people that only want psychology, right? Like, it's very important to have psychology, but you also need to have the whole picture. So having, being able to talk to the spirit, talk to the body, and, like, talk to the psychology part of it really brings a program that is, for me, it was life changing.
I love that. I love that. I'm one that studied at the spiritualist camp. So I studied in Casadega in Florida. So I have a trip in 4 weeks to Lilydale. I've never been there. So I'm excited
Um,
to go and visit Lilydale. And it's a whole week long of mediumship demonstrations and experience. And so I'm really excited to do that. So people that are wanting to step into their gifts, there's always stuff out there that you can do to kind of connect. And you were talking earlier that you and your wife are teaching some classes. So are these online? Are they virtual? Are they in person? Share a little bit about some of that with us.
Right. So what we do is we teach a class called A Night of Psychic Adventure. So right now it's going to be it's the first Tuesday of every month, and then over the summer we're going to be rolling out weekend classes, and then a Thursday night demo class. And what we do is it's about an hour and a half, and we demonstrate and then we teach people how to do different practices, whether it's intuitive readings, soul to soul connection, mediumistic readings, and channeling. And it's really fun. We've been told of like what a lovely safe environment we've created, and it's just so fun to do. It's really fun to help people tune into these gifts that they have and really transform their lives through it.
It's awesome when we can open people up to their natural gifts, right?
It's really
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, it's really kind of awesome. So, talk to us about making a daily practice of connecting to your inner child. It's one of the topics in here because I think inner child work, for some people, they avoid it, but it is so important. So, how can we do that to have a better relationship? And what is the inner child for those listening that have never heard that term before?
So if we look at it through a lens of trauma, right, we all have had terrible experiences in our lives. And oftentimes we have like a frozen part of ourselves. So how this manifests is oftentimes if we're in arguments with people and then we start acting like kids. We're like, I can't believe you said that, or like we shut down or we get really super angry. Sometimes there's like unresolved parts of ourselves that are frozen in our bodies. And so, working with individuals, we can give voices to those parts and then give them the love, the attention, and the kindness that they maybe have never gotten, and give them the voice that they need. So that's part of it, right? Like, so that's working with like being able to free that voice and be able to give those parts of you that love, kindness, and attention that they never had. And then you can track when they start to show up in adult arguments, and you're like, that part of me doesn't need to be in this fight. You can go and you can play, you can go and do the things that you want to do and let the adults take care of this. So it's a little bit of self-care, and it's a lot of like freeing up this energy and taking care of yourself on that level. That's kind of like the psychological level. But then there's that part of you that we might be in resistance to doing some of the work we need to do, right? Like we wake up and we're like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to go to work. So, what if you had a different practice where through these exercises, connecting to what it is that as a child that you love to do? Maybe it was dancing, maybe it was singing, maybe it was playing Legos, maybe it was creating art, right? And spending a little bit of time in the morning or before you have these meetings, before you get into the draw of it, like the big like kind of things, and playing. Like if you have a meeting that you're really nervous about and scared about, and you feel like, wait, I'm not in my adult self. And you don't want that like young part of you showing up in a big meeting, because that's when you don't show up in the best place because maybe your angry 12-year-old inside you doesn't want to be there, right? So what could you do before that meeting, right? Can you make it a practice to draw every day or to like get yourself psyched by playing that favorite song of yours? Like what it is that that lights you up so that when you go into that meeting you're not that angry resistant part of you, but you're in that flow and you've taken care of your parts of self and you're like, yeah, now I'm going to show up and I'm excited and I'm really happy about what I'm doing.
I love that because what most of us don't realize is a lot of our shadow work. And when I talk about shadow, it's the negative side of us that we don't want to acknowledge, that reaction. A lot of that's created as a child through our early childhood of anger, disappointment, frustration. And then that shadow gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. If you think about it, as even as parents, sometimes our children need that one-on-one time and we don't have time. We're going to work or we got to clean the house or we got to do the laundry or we have to run this errand and we push them away. So by giving that child the time, the one-on-one focus that they so crave and desire, even though you're an adult, it's like going back and spending time with them that they didn't get as a child, because that's
Yeah.
really where those emotions, triggers, energies come from of mom or dad never had time with me. Dad couldn't pass ball because he had to go to work, or they didn't come to my games, or they didn't come to my shows because they were working. All of that creates triggers. Whereas our parents are trying to do the best they can, and sometimes going to work puts food on the table, and there's this imbalance, right? So doing that inner child work of sitting down and playing. And what people don't realize is when we play, when we have fun, when we step into the things that you're talking about, that's where we manifest the best things, because we're having fun and we're enjoying life and we're bringing in more joy and happiness through that healing process of play. And as adults, we don't make time for play. It's the reason I do so many play shops at the center, and people are like, why do you do these crazy play shops? Because we all need play.
So much.
We need that outlet because we don't do it anymore. It's like, I'm an adult. I can't do that. I can't take time. Well, if you don't, that inner child, that shadow, feels more and more alone, isolated, gets angrier and angrier. And then you blow up at somebody and you walk away and go, where did that come from? Why did I say that? What
Mm-hmm.
was that all about?
Right.
Right.
And it's then you spend your time trying to repair all that work that you were doing before, because you shot off and caused all this destruction because you haven't been paying attention to those parts of you. And the interesting thing about shadow work too is it's not only the the bad stuff that gets repressed, it's the good stuff sometimes too. So we could have the gold in the shadow, which is our genius. And if we weren't, if our creative abilities and our magic was not held or celebrated in our lives, sometimes that magic is in that shadow too. So by paying attention to those parts of ourselves that really need the love and that fun, right? We're giving space for that gold in our shadow to really be able to come forth and our genius really express ourselves. Because when we start to really address our creativity and really give it the space in our lives that it needs and it wants, that starts to make our whole life better. Because
Yeah.
instead of being like, I'm angry and I really wanted to spend that time drawing and I didn't get to do that, or do that hobby and I have to do my taxes and pay the bills and, fix the car and mow the lawn and all those kind of things. And if we get angry and then we don't have our needs met, really, and we need to get our needs met. And sometimes that's by slowing down and allowing ourselves to have some fun and sing and dance and play and create.
I love that. And it's part of our healing process too, which leads us really to find out who we really are, because sometimes we've grown up under an expectation of a parent, following a career that our parents did because it was expected, or
Mhm.
doing a job because somebody said that's what we needed to do. And it's not really in alignment. So then we're misaligned. And so that can create lots of frustration too. And so by doing inner child work and doing some of this healing process, we can actually find out who we truly are and who we're supposed to be, and where our passion and our love and our happiness sits versus I'm expected to do this. I need to do this. Well, maybe there's something else that you need to do as well,
Right.
or maybe a whole shift. And that may be scary, but how exciting could it be to be really aligned with who you are versus misaligned? And you can find that through healing and really doing some of this work of, what did you dream about as a child? What did you hope for? You're an adult now. You can go and do it. There's nobody telling you you can't, right?
And
I always wanted to be a ballerina, then go take ballet classes. I always wanted to be a fireman, then go volunteer, do the training. There's always a way to kind of step into some of that stuff if we allow ourselves to do that. So I love I love that aspect. So you also have here developing your own path of healing. How do we develop our own path? How do we know what we need healing in? Where do we start? If somebody is sitting here and goes, I have no idea where to even start.
Well, I think spirit will tell you, right? Like spirit will tell you exactly where to start. And if your spirit doesn't tell you, your partner will.
Well, you have to move through that fear. And sometimes we avoid healing because that sounds really tough or really hard.
Right. Well, what you were just saying, a lot of times I'm often working with people who have hit their middle ages, and right, like they start their lives with what they are told what to do, and they go to college and they study what they're supposed to do or what their parents tell us to do, and or they get an idea about what their lives are supposed to be like, and then they 20 years down the road they're like, I hate this, I've never liked this, and their marriages are falling apart or their health is bad, right? And that's the midlife crisis, right? So along the way, hopefully you've had some sort of like awakening that maybe this isn't the right way, and how do you create this path of healing, right? And what it is connecting to the things that make you happy. And if you're so unhappy about that, going to therapy, going to psychic readings, going like on a path of exploration is really the way that I look at it, right? And sometimes you can say, well, somebody's told me I need to go to therapy, and I'm going to start going to therapy. But if it doesn't feel right, then maybe you try something else, and maybe you take a class, and maybe you just sort of work on doing the things like you were saying that you always wanted to do and never had the opportunity, never gave yourself permission to do. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be, a path of deep examination, but if you can't get to doing those things that bring you joy, then you have to go in and look at, why can I not do that? Why can I not give myself permission to take an art class, or or show up in my family different? And so finding those things that light you up and bring you joy is really what I work to do to help uncover it. So it's uncovering the trauma that stops you from stepping into a path of joy, looking at re-examining the fears and where they came from. Are they even your fears? Giving people practical advice and practices, meditation, like tapping, and other kinds of tools that help you move from a place of trauma and a place of fear and into a place of spirit and creativity in life. One of my favorite ideas is that when you're in a state of fear, it is when you're in your state of ego, right? And your ego is the part of you that tells you you can't do that, or you're not good enough, or you're too good and you can't do that, right? Whatever the ego is. And that's really when you're really disconnected from spirit, and slowing down, going into your breath, meditating, getting practices that connect you to your creativity and your spirit all help you quiet your ego. So then when you can quiet your ego and quiet your fears, you can step into your joy.
I love that. I love the term curious. Get curious. Get curious. Ask questions. As a child that's curious, they're trying all different things to figure out what feels right, what they want to do. And I think when you step on this path, if you can get curious and find safe places to discover new things, you can really find what makes you happy, what you get excited about, what really feels right. And I think that's a great place to start. Fred, talk to us about some of the things that you offer, because I want people to understand how they can get a hold of you, how they can connect with you, and some of the things that you offer for students or clients so that they have a good idea.
So I offer a lot of things. I do work with anger management. So people that are having issues with like popping off in their anger and really not they have no idea what inner child work is and all that kind of stuff, and they need a path into healing their anger. So I do work with anger management. I do one-on-one intuitive readings, medium mystic readings, and channeling sessions. I do one-on-one psychospiritual counseling. So I can walk people through practices, teach them how to do it, sit with them, help them connect with their inner child and heal these traumas and pain that they are experiencing. And I do the psychic adventure courses. We are also relaunching Helix. So if you go to helixtraining.org, you can learn more about that program. And that's going to be launching next January. So we'll be having a number of online presentations in the fall about that. So you can sign on to the mailing list and check about that. And I just have new things rolling out all the time. I also do sacred intuitive art sessions where I sit with people and we go through a program where you connect with your power animal and you get to the top of your mountain and you really can claim your energy and your power. And then I produce a collage slash creative piece of artwork that personalized to your journey, and you get that as well. So I have a lot of offerings.
I love that. I love that. I'd love to have you back on in the fall to talk about your relaunch, or we can spend a lot of time talking about what you're putting together, what that looks like. I would love to have you and your wife back on, your directors on. We could definitely talk about what's coming out and what you guys' vision is. So I hope you'll
Well,
think
thank you
about
so
that.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time today to spend your afternoon, because it's 2 hours later there than it is here. So thank you for spending your midday with me today.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity and best of luck with everything.
All right. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you'll like, comment, and follow us on your favorite platforms. Sacred Magic Podcast loves to connect with our listeners and those that are viewing. Thank you so much, and have a sacred, magical week.